everyone, my name is Jamal McKinney, or you can just call me Juice because that is my nickname. I want to discuss the 2020 NFL MVP race in this video. And so today I'm going to predict who, in my opinion, is going to actually win the NFL MVP. But while in the process, I'm going to give you the top 5 candidates for league MVP this year in the NFL. This is strictly based on if I were to bet money, in what order do I think these 5 guys have as far as their chances of actually winning the award? I take into account, how good your team is, because you have to actually win games, what your supporting cast is, and just overall, how good of a player are you actually? There's going to be a lot of star-studded quarterbacks on this list. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, before I get into the top 5 candidates, I have a sleeper candidate for you guys. And for those of you that watched my Denver Broncos video, roughly about a couple days ago, you guys know this is not going to be a shock. I have Drew Lock as my biggest sleeper this year to win the NFL MVP. And the reason why I'm going to pick Drew Lock as the biggest sleeper is simply because I don't think that people realize how much help that he is going to have around him at the tight end position, at the wide receiver position, at the running back position. Not to mention Pat Shurmur comes in there, to be the offensive coordinator. He's not a great head coach, but I think he's a pretty good offensive coordinator. He took Case Keenum to an NFC Championship game. He allowed Case Keenum to have the best season that he's ever had. And the offensive line is improved with Jawan James coming back, and Graham Glasgow was a very underrated signing. So look, they have a lot of speed at tight end. Does Denver? Noah Fant is one of the fastest tight ends in all football. They drafted Albert O, who was arguably the fastest tight end in the draft. Jerry Jeudy, they added from the 2020 NFL draft, along with KJ Hamler. Jerry Jeudy was the best route runner in the draft. KJ Hamler, one of the fastest players in the draft. Not to mention, you already had Courtland Sutton, who to me is a top 10 wide receiver in all football on your team. And the running back position is very good. Philip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon, they're two 3-down running backs that can catch passes out of the backfield. And listen, you can say, well, Drew Lock barely played last year. He's only in his second season. How can you pick him to make this big leap? Patrick Mahomes was in his second season in which he won MVP, and he only played in 1 game his rookie year. Lamar Jackson. Did anyone expect Lamar Jackson to have the MVP season that he had in his second season? I don't think so. Carson Wentz, he burst onto the scene his sophomore season. So it is not out of the question that a second-year quarterback that's young with a lot of help around him, and Drew Lock has a lot of help around him outside of maybe Kansas City, Tampa Bay, and some other teams, Cleveland, maybe Dallas, maybe New Orleans. This guy has the most help in the league. So I think that Drew Lock is going to burst onto the scene. He's my sleeper candidate. At number 5, I have Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is one of the 5 best, quarterbacks in football right now to me. And he's yet to have a breakout season. He had a very good rookie season, which he was on pace to actually throw for over 40 touchdown passes. But unfortunately, he got hurt due to his ACL injury. And I think that Deshaun Watson is going to put up numbers simply because I think the Houston Texans are going to rely on him a lot. I like Duke Johnson. I like, what's his name? I forget the other running back. Yeah, David Johnson. Duke and David Johnson are pretty solid, but I don't think they're going to get a whole lot of rushing touchdowns this year. I think Deshaun Watson is going to have to carry this team once again, just like he's been doing pretty much his entire career. I hated the DeAndre Hopkins trade, but I have to admit, Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, Kiki Kuti, Randall Cobb, that's some pretty serious speed at the wide receiver position. I think Deshaun Watson is going to spread the ball out a lot this year. His 2 tight ends, Akins and Fells, are not bad. The Houston Texans offensive line improved a ton from a year ago, in which he was sacked 62 times. They cut that down this year, this past year, I should say. The offensive line should be improved. So I think Deshaun Watson is going to put up numbers. The only question is, will he win enough games? I think that Houston is around about a 10, maybe 11 win team. I could see them winning only 9 games. So due to the fact that Deshaun Watson is not going to win a whole lot of games, I have him slipping in these rankings, but he very well could win this whole thing as far as the MVP goes next year. Tom Brady is my 4th best candidate if I were to bet money on who's going to win league MVP this year in the NFL. Listen, outside of Kansas City, I think that Tom Brady has the most help as far as his wide receivers and tight ends go. Mike Evans is probably one of the 5 best wide receivers in all football. Chris Godwin burst onto the scene this past year. You have two legit weapons on the outside. Not to mention, they drafted a wide receiver out of Minnesota that I like. They have three really good tight ends. Rob Gronkowski comes back this year, a rejuvenated Gronk. O.J. Howard has the speed. Cameron Brate seems to get open, a lot. So I think that, look, Tom Brady's got a lot of help around him. And listen, they also drafted Keyshawn Vaughn, a very talented running back out of Vanderbilt. He can catch passes. He's a home run hitter. And Ronald Jones is dynamic with the ball in his hands. Not to mention, you improve the offensive line with Tristan Wirfs. And listen, Tampa Bay's defense is one of the most underrated units in all football. In the second half of the season, despite Jameis Winston's turnovers, they still were a very, very good unit. So I think that Tom Brady is actually going to win a lot of games this year. I could actually see Tom Brady winning 11 or 12 games because I think this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team is that stacked. Jameis Winston put up a lot of numbers for a reason. He had a lot of help around him. And I think that Tom Brady is going to be efficient. He's going to be looking to prove Bill Belichick wrong. That's one of the reasons why I think he left Bill Belichick in the first place, was to kind of stick it to the Patriots and say, hey, listen, Bill Belichick, you wanted Jimmy G over me. You're not giving me the weapons that I want. I'm sorry, I got to leave you, and I'm going to dominate in Tampa Bay. I know Tom Brady did not have the greatest season last year, but he still won 12 games with some of the slowest wide receivers in all football last year. And I think he's going to dominate in Tampa Bay. I really do. Patrick Mahomes is my third best candidate this year to win league MVP. This is the best player in football and easily the best quarterback in football as of right now, so he's naturally going to get some votes. He's going to put up those numbers. He's had a great start to his career so far. His offensive line is very good. Tyreek Hill is the fastest player in the NFL. Travis Kelce, not the best tight end. He's either first or second. I think that George Kittle's a little bit better because he's a better blocker, but Patrick Mahomes has a lot of help around him. So Patrick Mahomes is going to put up a lot of numbers. However, I could see the Kansas City Chiefs, as far as their win total, taking a hit this year. I think that they're going to be around maybe 11-5, simply because I think that the Denver Broncos have made a lot of strides this offseason. I think that they'll at least split with Kansas City. The Chargers are getting better. The Raiders are no joke as far as them being an improved team. So, and look, Patrick Mahomes is going to have to face Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson this year. Those are two games that he could easily lose. And this is just the regular season. So it's not about who's the best player in football. It's about who's having the best season. And while Patrick Mahomes is going to put up a lot of numbers, a lot of other quarterbacks are going to put up numbers as well. And I think that Kansas City will get in a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover early in the season. I think they'll pick it up late. So I don't think that they're going to win 12, 13, 14 games this year. I think that they're going to win around 11. They could prove me wrong, but I think that Patrick Mahomes, as your third best candidate, is pretty good, but he could easily win the MVP this year, but I have him at third for the reasons that I mentioned. Lamar Jackson comes in at number 2, and I'm just going to reveal the guy that I have winning the MVP this year. I have Russell Wilson winning the MVP. Lamar Jackson won 14 games last year. I don't think he's going to win 14 games again. I think he's going to win around 12 or 13, which is still very good. The Baltimore Ravens could easily finish with the best record in football once again. And Lamar Jackson had an unbelievable season last year, but he actually could take another step. The only problem is that as far as Lamar Jackson's odds to win MVP next year, it is very hard to repeat as a league MVP. Joe Montana did it once. Brett Favre has done it in the past, but it is still very rare that a player repeats as NFL MVP. And let's be real, these writers are looking for the most compelling stories. Okay, Lamar Jackson, he deserved the MVP last year, but he was a great story. And meanwhile, Russell Wilson has never gotten a league MVP vote in his career. He's never gotten a single first place vote for MVP in his career, which is astonishing. And I think that the Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, they're going to be near the top of the NFC because their schedule is very, very easy. Now, taking into account how many games you are actually going to win. Outside of San Francisco and Arizona in their own division, their schedule is very, very easy. They do have to travel to Philadelphia. They do have to travel to Buffalo. But outside of those 4 games right there on their schedule, San Francisco, Arizona, Philadelphia, Buffalo, they're going to be heavily favored in most of their games. I encourage you to go back and look at the Seahawks schedule this year. It's very easy, and they could easily win 12 or 13 games. So if Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson both win about the same amount of games this year, I have to think that Lamar Jackson is not going to get the nod over Russell Wilson simply because I think that voters will captivate more towards Russell Wilson's story. You know, he's never won. He's never won an MVP. He's never gotten an MVP vote. And I think that if you're betting money, your best bet is to go with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is the second best quarterback in football, in my opinion, to Patrick Mahomes. So he's going to put up numbers naturally. He had 31 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, completed 66% of his passes last year. DK Metcalf could take a huge step this year. He had a very solid rookie season. Tyler Lockett is one of the most underrated wide receivers in all of football that no one talks about. He's amazing. And Greg Olsen is now added to the equation for Russell Wilson. He now has a very reliable tight end to go with Disley, to go with the other good tight ends on their team. He's got 3 really good running backs on his team. And like I said, Russell Wilson is just a special quarterback. I think that he's going to put up a lot of great numbers. Seattle's going to win a lot of games. And if I was a betting man, I would bet on Russell Wilson to win the 2020 NFL MVP. So there you have it right there. Once again, my top 5 candidates. Number 1, Russell Wilson. Number 2, Lamar Jackson. Number 3, Patrick Mahomes. Number 4, Tom Brady. Number 5, Deshaun Watson. And my biggest sleeper to win NFL MVP is Drew Lock. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juiciest Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I currently am a freshman there right now. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juiciest Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.